Welcome back again to another episode of the Builder's Mindset. Today we are going to talk about purchasing and from the aspect of I need my purchasing team to save me. My good friend Brad Halbert recently, a couple weeks ago, put a post up about how we've got to, as builders, stop getting down to the back end of a project, meaning like we're about to buy the project for the vertical cost. We bought the land, we priced the houses, we've done the land development, and all of a sudden we go, oh my gosh, we're going to be over budget. Our margins are not going to be what we thought. Purchasing, hey, I need you to beat your budget by 15%. Or better yet, we go, hey, to make our metrics, here's your budget. And there was never a budget thought of in the past. And so we end up going to purchasing and saying, hey, I need you to save the day. And then he also talked a little bit about sometimes we end up asking construction to save the day a little bit. Hey, I know you said this was going to be 7 months to build this product, but can you really do it in 6? Because man, things are tight. We're not, the numbers are not looking good anymore. And I don't understand why you can't do this. So I'm gonna work into that a little bit and flip that script a little bit and say, there's a saying once when I was getting sober, I was in an office somewhere. Actually, I was in a medical office, and there was a sign on the wall, and the sign said that men don't want to be saved from their vices or their habits. They want to be saved from the bad effects, the bad impacts of their habits. And that resonated with me, and it sat with me for years and years and years and years. And so just to clarify, what they're saying is that we don't want to change our ways, but we want to change the outcome. And this is analogous, I think, to what Brad was talking about. And I'm going to go a little bit like even to a different part of home building. And I commented on his post about this. I said, what I typically see is that we have a budget, right? Because if you're going to go buy a piece of dirt, most, not all, but most builders, public and private, are going to do some form of a pro forma. And what I've seen in my history is that often purchasing is not involved in the establishment of the budget for the direct cost, which is, I've talked about in other podcasts, depending upon the market that you're in, your direct costs of construction, including fees, which depending upon your market, fees usually aren't that big of a chunk of it, unless you go to Colorado's got massive water fees, and California has insane fees. But in California, they typically don't put those fees in the direct costs. So if you're anywhere but the West Coast of the United States and the upper Northeast, for the most part, if you're selling a house for $1 million, your direct construction costs are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $450,000, 45%, maybe 50. Okay. And I use the million just because it's an easy number to do math, but average house price, new home price is like in the low fours. So we could do some rough math. We say, look, if it's 100,000, right, that would be, we'll call it 45,000. So $400,000 home, you should be $180,000, right? That should be your direct cost. A lot of builders, I don't even think work into that. What do I mean by work into that? Well, if you're going to establish that budget and you're going to say, well, I bought this piece of land and I said that the direct cost should be $180,000. Well, my challenge is, did you design product that was going to cost $180,000? And I don't know how many times, like in my career, and it's getting better. It is getting better, but we just put that number there. We go, well, we gave the number, like the metrics are, we know what they should be. And then I look at the product, or the purchasing team gets the product, and you go, there is no way you're going to buy this product for $180,000. It's like, champagne taste on a beer budget, right? It's like going to the Cadillac dealership and you have a budget for Chevy, or, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Toyota. It costs Toyota more to make a Lexus ES 300 than it does a Toyota Camry. And when you sit inside that Lexus, if you go to a Lexus dealership, they'll tell you all of the things that they do that are different than the Toyota Camry. Go drive 5 or 6 cars from different manufacturers in any given day. And I think Toyota is a great one because, or go like do a Nissan Infiniti, right? Like Infiniti is the higher end of Nissan, or Acura is the higher end of Honda. And go drive. And it's funny, you could see them, like you can go, oh, that one's a lot like this, or like the Camry and the Lexus ES 300 are basically the same chassis. And you'll see some of that same, thing looking like the Nissan Maxima, I think is the same chassis as, the Infiniti Q, whatever it is. But Nissan 370Z is basically the same chassis as the Infiniti G37, right? And so look at the difference. They're not the same car. Yes, they're the same chassis, but the spec level is totally different. And so I think a lot of builders miss this aspect of what does it take to get to that product type? And that mismatch can be for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just completely different product. Like, let's go back to the car analogy. Sometimes what that should be is they should be planning not even a Toyota Camry, they should be planning a Corolla, but they're planning a Camry or a Lexus ES because something missed the mark in terms of their market study and their survey, and now all of a sudden purchasing gets a set of plans, and they're like, why are you over budget purchasing? So this is where, like, you all know, you've listened to me, I'm a huge advocate of product development being run by purchasing, because if you have certain other departments kind of running and in charge of the product development and or the product selection, I believe it's like the fox watching the hen house. Now, there should be a group, right? And we should do market studies. And those market studies should tell us that piece of dirt, this is the type of home, the size home, the bed bath count, and this is what we can sell it for. It can also give you some level of specification guidance. It won't really be down to the nuts and bolts like what a purchasing team needs to really go out and bid that project, but it'll be, oh, this is entry level and you need 2-story homes from 1,800 to 2,500 square feet, and you need things from 3-bedroom, 2-bath to 5-bedroom, 3-bath. And then you've got to look at the exterior of the home and how do you design into that. And there are lists and lists of things that we could talk about if this podcast wasn't. I try to cap these at 20 minutes, but these are just things to think about. Do you have one-sided architecture, 3-sided architecture, 4-sided architecture? Are you putting shutters on 1, 2, 1, 3, or 4 sides of the home? What do your roof lines look like? What do your roof pitches look like? You got 4 and 12 roof pitches, or 5 and 12 roof pitches, or do you have 8 and 12, 10 and 12? I once remember having a conversation with a business owner, and I said to them, it's hard enough just to get roofers to do these 10 and 12 pitch roofs, let alone the cost when we do get the roofers. And I said, they're expensive. And his response was, yeah, but they look really nice, don't they? I said, yes, they look nice, but we have to ask ourselves, can the buyer from the market study in that zip code afford a 10 and 12 pitch roof? Because it costs more money. It costs a lot more money. And when you talk about product development, it costs a lot more money, not just for the roofers. If you've got gable ends and you've got siding and or stucco, whatever your facade is, going up, instead of, just going up from a 9-foot plate, let's say 12, 13, 14 feet, you could be going up 16 feet. If you're, depending upon how you're insulating the attic, if you're doing spray foam insulation, those gable end roofs all have to be on the inside. The spray foam insulation has to go on that wall. The steeper the pitch of your roof, the higher up it has to go. So these types of things that you have to think about. Let's go to the energy. Like when you put the energy modeling together, whether you're in California, you got Title 24, or you're in the other 49 states, and you've got HERS, and you have to do HERS reporting. How do you do your HVAC system? How do you do your water heating efficiency? all of those things that go into that energy calculations can be thousands of dollars if you don't do it right for the market study. What's an example of that? Okay. Would you like, if you have a 2-story, 3,000 square foot home, would you like a 2-system HVAC system? Sure, I'd like one too. But what if the buyer for that zip code, based on the market study that takes into account the school district, the location, and the surrounding neighborhoods, what if they can't afford that? And we put that in because the energy rater designer or the mechanical designer we pick, that's what they think is best, and that's what they like to do because that's what we just do in Colorado or Arizona or New Mexico or Southern California, Northern California. But what if you can get away with a single zone system where you're strategic about where you place your thermostat based on thermodynamics, and you understand that this particular market really doesn't have a lot of heating days. It doesn't get very cold. So why don't we design the system a little bit more affordably to focus on cooling days rather than heating days? And let's keep the cost of that system down, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. And I'm not saying any one of these things is going to make or break the margins or make or break the project. But what it is going to do when you think about it from that perspective, and you say, let's go back to the car analogy. Is this a Lexus buyer or is it a Toyota buyer? And if it's a Toyota buyer, is it a Camry or a Corolla buyer? And hey, if it's a Lexus buyer, is it an ES or an LS? So we have to be really, really thoughtful, because I think where Brad was going, I'm gonna go a little bit deeper into where Brad's thing was going, is that when we aren't thoughtful and now we're going to go bid the project, we're too far along in the product development process to really make any major wholesale changes from the perspective of like what we can really do with the structure of the home, the look of the home, the feel of the home, the design of the energy features in a home. Is it a tankless? Is it a heat pump water heater? You're too far along at that point. So basically at that point, all you have the opportunity to do is to go to your purchasing team and just squeeze them, pinch them, thump, put your foot on their neck and basically say, well, I'm sorry, but you got to get here. Yeah, but the product was designed for, well, we got to get here, otherwise the job's going to lose money. This is a problem. And I've worked for builders, I've worked for builders where models were built, but then told you're going to put the community on hold after those models are built until you relook at and reassess what you're doing, because you're not making near the margin that you forecast. And so essentially, you're then though squeezing your purchasing team to squeeze your trade partners. And so what you're doing, you're saying, let's just take margin out of the system, right? And in my opinion, that's just not the right way to go about it. I want to get the best price. And I think there's better ways to go about getting the best price than just having 3, 4, 5 bids and just pitting them against each other and seeing who's more hungry for the work and just squeezing them as much as you can. Now, there's a lot of other ways that you can go about it. And one of my favorite is I'm a big fan of product development. There are other folks out there who like to talk about, kind of knowing what it costs to build a house and turnkey versus like unit of measure, understanding that. And that's great. And I believe in that. I think that's wonderful. The reason I focus more on product development is kind of twofold. Number one, not every builder is ready to buy kind of in a unit of measure fashion. They're just trying to get the basic blocking and tackling down and done, and they're struggling with that. I know builders who just struggle with takeoffs and managing those from the ordering to the field. But if you are in a place where you've got a really good back-end system, you got a good purchasing team, you've got good estimation, do it, because it will help you massively. What I will say though is, if you design your product right and you do a very thorough wants and needs analysis, put that together with your market study, and market studies, you should do third-party outside market studies to validate what your internal team is believing and saying. You can design the product, and now if you have library product, then you're still at least picking the right library product. If you've got a 35 wide, a 40 wide, and a 50 wide, make sure you're picking the right product. And that's usually lot size dependent, but it could be you have two 40 wide products and one is more geared towards, a higher end. It's got more function in the home than it does, the other one. And so you want to think about that. Are we doing, two sinks and secondary baths or one? There's a cost to that. So to me, if you get the product development right and you have the ability to do takeoff information and that and you can manage that and your team can manage it, now you got the double, you got the 1-2 punch. What I say though is if you don't have the product development right, you'll still do good with the takeoffs, but not as good as you could do if you get the product development right. And I truly believe not enough builders pay enough attention to product development. I sat in a meeting once where I had an owner of a company say to me, the elusive library, or actually the elusive master plan products. There's a lot of builders out there who think they're production builders, but they're more semi-custom than they want to admit to. And they struggle with the concept of master plans. And they really most builders struggle with library plans. What do library plans do for you? Number one, now you really know your cost to build that product because you've built it once or twice or 3 times. And each time, hopefully in that iteration, you're taking feedback from sales and marketing about what the buyers want and need in 2 fashions. What do we need to add, but also what can we take out? You're letting your trades tell you, hey, when I built this beam is difficult to put in. Hey, structural engineer, can we look at that? Let's modify that. So we're iterating that product. A couple weeks ago, I had Brian Judes on and we talked about it. And I know he brought up his fear and his concern that we might get too commoditized with our product type. And what I would say is I understand that concern. However, what I'm a little bit more concerned about is private home builders, smaller private home builders, struggling to stay competitive and relative in the marketplace because they don't believe that they can execute library product, value-driven designs, and compete with the large home builders. Look, at the end of the day, the large home builders are going to buy better than the smaller builders. That's a given. So why not give yourself the best chance? Maybe you're able to take a lower margin than them and you're comfortable with that, but can you even get to that place if they're buying for $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 a foot, $7 a foot less because of their national contracts and their leverage and their buying power? So if you're on top of that, thinking that you need to one-up them on product, and so each community you're doing something different and you're doing a Camry when you could be doing a Corolla, or you're doing a Lexus ES300 when you could be doing a Camry, or you're not designing right, you're not putting together your whole system of your home correctly, you're going to end up adding to that differential from a cost perspective. And as you said, it's the largest percent of your revenue. So if you lower your house cost by $1,000 and you sell that home, you just made $1,000 more dollars. What's easier, that or raising your price by $1,000? So I challenge you, when we look at this, it's if have you ever been in that situation as the leader of a small private home builder where you said, our directs are over budget, and gone back to your purchasing team and squeezed them to renegotiate, rebid, and do what they need to do? Have you ever been in that position? And if you have, what I would say to you is, have you ever then done an after action report analysis and said, how did we get here? And I'll bet if you did, or if you do, you will find most of the time your product is off and it's over-spec'd or it's over-designed. And so if you start there, you will give yourself the best chance throughout the course of the lifetime of that community to achieve the best results that you can. And so rather than going out and beating up the margins of the trade partners who come after you, let's start with the product development so that we give the team, the purchasing team, and the trades the best chance at working together to come up with the costs that we're looking for because we were thoughtful in our design and we were thoughtful in how we put that house together and how we went to market with it. I hope you found this insightful. Let me know your thoughts in the comments if you want to add to it. You've got any thoughts or ideas. Would love to hear your opinion on my opinion, because that's all it is. It's just an opinion. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day. Have an amazing day. And we'll talk to you next week.